Hey, how's it going, y'all? It is Moist Andy today, and what I'm going to be teaching you is another Blender tutorial video series, how to take this detailed sculpt object we worked on earlier, and I just added all the finishing touches here, and I'm not willing to put any more work into it. Like, this is the resolution we're working with. It's about 1.25 million triangles. It's pretty good. So the object mode here, we have our 3D cursors in the center of the grid, so we could just add a plane. Now what this plane in the middle is going to be representing is our reference mesh, so we'll just give it a nice cool name. Perfect. Now tab into edit mode with that, so you can take this and scale it, rotate it kind of into position, like wherever you want to begin sculpting out, the retopolization out. You just you could start on the edge loop of that limb right there. That's just perfectly acceptable. So we want to add an X mirror modifier to this thing. It's gonna have some symmetry across the x-axis. You could turn clip in and maybe to about 0.02 of an inch. So that's perfectly okay. Now we also want another modifier on this. It's going to be the shrink wrap modifier right here. This is going to be attached to this sculpture, kind of like wrapping around it, conforming to everything. We want the offset of this to be about 1/4 of an inch, and check keep above surface. This is all. And then in the properties tab here, we also want to enable X-ray. So now we could see very clearly how this is going to be wrapping all around this thing. So we could begin pulling points around, click the vertex select, and just get started here. This is a very long and arduous process. Trust me, nobody likes doing this whole thing because it's just so time consuming, but it's a matter of just getting all these extrusions out, and you begin to form edge loops exactly like this. So go all the way around a limb to get started here, and then you could point pull, and what I find is turning magnetization on and getting it to the face. That really helps me, so that I know all these things are touching onto that high-res object. That's perfect. Another helpful thing is just at this point in time, turn off matte cap and just give it one nice pretty material. We'll make like a lime green color so we can see a little more clearly what we're doing here. It's just standing out a little bit more now. That's pretty good so far. Continuing on with the extrusion, you just hit the E and it extrudes for you, and you could rotate around the median point just like this. It's very simple so far to do this part of the process. Make sure all these vertices are evenly spaced though, and keep the edges not jagged looking, but try and keep them smooth, That's how I'm gonna do it right here. As you can see, this shrink wrap modifier is really speeding up the process, because without this, with just using only the magnetize, that would be very inefficient. That's how it used to be done. This is the new way. So when you come to a nice conclusion right there, hit the F. F will fill in a face for you right here. Now from this, we could actually start building upwards. So I'll just go ahead and select these vertices right there. Now with my grease pencil, this is a very useful tip. Not many people know these things, alright? you can draw onto the surface of the object. Just draw lines like this going into the same direction, just going gradually upwards, up to the spine. This is perfect. Look at this. We can extend this geometry using the grease pencil right there. And go to the tools here now, and B surfaces. I have an add-on called B surfaces enabled right here. We could just click add a surface, and boom, it adds a whole bunch more polygons for us. You can adjust kind of the detail that it puts in there, and then just begin putting it in and clipping them towards the center, because our X mirror enables us to do so. So that's how you kind of get started on a mesh very quick and easy. It's sort of effortless compared to how people used to do this type of thing. It's very simple to do. So you can alt right click on some of these, and like it selects an edge loop like this. Now with the C, this allows us to paint a selection. You could click in your middle mouse button to start deselecting some of this, and as you can begin to see, this is where I plan to extend this geometry outwards down the length of the body. So I can just draw in some grease pencil lines going into the same direction right here, and I'll just draw them in as I think is appropriate. So then I go to the B surfaces one more damn time, and I go add surface, and look at this. Incredible. I have discovered this new technology where it is so innovative, so simple to just create with limitless potential to create anything I want using Blender. It's very easy, as you can see. Now, one other helpful thing is if you go back to your shrink wrap modifier and adjust the cage modifier to result in edit mode, that allows us to visualize all of our vertices just a little bit more easily. So we could keep on going this. I'm just gonna go ahead, and I'm gonna have to do something a little funky here in spots like this. So I definitely need these polygons to have this kind of resolution here coming together in the middle, but on the remainder of it, as you see, it's a little bit more tight in this junction here. So we have to get kind of creative with this edge loop type of a deal here and make a quadrilateral in this place. And then we would have to kind of use our imagination and begin to see, where is this next quadrilateral going to be at? Well, maybe we might need one, maybe not. So I'm just going to close these for now, and if we don't like how that looks later on, we can deal with that. But just adjust these edge loops so that they're flowing across the contours a little bit more smooth. And we could continue with this edge loop coming all the way down to the tail. We'll get the grease pencil right on the tail, you know, just right there. That's just perfectly fine. Add a B surface to that, and keep keep this down a little. Down at 2 is pretty good. So that may not look very pretty right now, but what we could do is alt right click this, and we go to mesh, vertice, and we can smooth the vertex. So we want to get it a little bit better than that, so we could scale along the y-axis in, sort of until it's a little flatter. Maybe even cut an edge loop here, just to get a little more precise control over what we want this to end up looking like. So I can see right away, to get this limb extending out, I have to delete these faces here. This is perfectly fine. And now we could just adjust this geometry in here a little bit. So I'm gonna merge those there in the middle, and then I can see I'm gonna probably need to collapse some of these vertices here. So right away, I suppose so, I could just select these ones, and then these ones down here, and delete those for now, just to simplify the process. If you don't delete straight vertices like that, you might end up creating doubles, so delete those ones. And pull this around. I can see right now, I would like to make a quadrilateral with this. Just fill that in. Take this vertex then, and hit Alt M. That enables us to merge them right there, those two together. As you see, we're collapsing this sort of complicated geometry in this particular part of the model, so that we could end up with something like an end result that will be a little simple and easily deformed by the animation when we apply an armature modifier later on. So we'll just go ahead, and I think I'll just move these here. So you see the edges now, they're flowing smoothly across this sort of convoluted portion of the model here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take this edge and start extruding to the base of the tail, just so that I can fill that part in. Now I've created a new edge loop right around the base of that tail. Alt right click that, take your grease pencil, and you can go to the tip of the tail, like right down here. Then we go to B surface, add the surface. It thinks for a minute and creates something like this. Now tails, you want to have at least 3 edge loops per bone. So I'm going to increase that resolution just like this. And in a tail this long, I think about maybe 10 bones would be ideal. You could go a little less or a little more. It's all up to you. So do something similar here by maybe scaling in the Y, and you can go to smooth that vertex there. And if you don't like that result, another cool tip when you're doing this is turn on proportional edit, or hit O as a hotkey. That enables this. Now we have a lot more control over how we push these vertices together. So we can just straighten these out easily right there. And we see exactly how this comes together. You scroll your middle mouse, and that helps you to get more fine control over the proportional edit influence on the vertice. So in here, we gotta close this off with some quadrilaterals. So I'm just gonna make a quadrilateral right there, and then here we'll be able to make another one there. Just like this. Maybe perhaps see this here. I gotta turn off proportional edit to visualize exactly what's going on in there. So this face is, I want to get rid of that for now, just because it's a triangle, and I think we could probably get away with actually cutting an edge loop right here and then merging this here then we end up without a triangle there anymore. So that's an ideal result. And we just move these around to accommodate for this sort of complicated right here. Okay, so that's looking not perfect, but we could turn proportional editing on and finish the rest, like merge these vertices underneath the tail, the tip, right there. So as you see, it's about like, it's a game of like mathematically planning out in your head exactly what these vertices should be doing, how they should interact with each other when it animates out, and you gotta plan ahead for when you place the bones right into this positions. So you definitely want some smooth edge loops all over the entire thing, because think about it, 95% of this model is going to be bending around. It's going to be moving in all sorts of ways. So like, we could finish the rest of this here just extruding along, and I'm just gonna merge these. And a quick way to deal with this, instead of doing multiple extrusions, just hit Control R. This cuts a loop right there. That's about good for that part of the model. I think I'm gonna make a little more geometry up in there, just so I can get like the edge loop around the legs bending really good, moving around. In a spot like this, you can actually collapse some of this geometry, not all of it, but like if you have a bunch of vertices like this, it's better than having like a quadrilateral that's kind of almost concave shaped. It's better to have the vertices coming together like at 4 ways right there, 4 edges to the vertice there. So I need to cut an edge loop right in this piece, not there. I need it to be, I need this edge to be cut to split it. So it's not letting me do that because of this quadrilateral here. So I need to delete this vertice for right now and just chop it right there. That's good. That'll just get a little more resolution in that part, so I can begin to fill these together. I could extrude here, and merge these together there. Now it's a matter of really being cautious with how you do this to get like the most perfect edge loops possible. So you can cut edge loops in spots like this where you think you're gonna need that detail to be a little higher, right in here. It's a very long and arduous process. There's no shortcuts for this, other than like the tips and tricks with like B surfaces and stuff I already show you, and the shrink wrap modifier. Like, this is all done by hand. So I have like this nice clean edge loop here, and now I could just begin to extrude that down and rotate it around a little. See, sometimes you gotta go into like this type of perspective to rotate things. Turn on my proportional edit, just see if I could smooth that out a little more. Exactly like this. And the shrink wrap modifier really likes when you have some detail to work with to do its calculations properly. So just cut an edge loop here. For hips and shoulders and things, get about three nice clean edge loops that you can work with the middle one kind of being centered around where the joint's gonna end up being. This is gonna work here, because you see the bone is gonna be like right in here is where the root of the bone will be pivoting around. So with my proportional edit turned on, I can really just fix all this stuff where it has to be. See, in spots like underneath, like the inside of the thigh there, it can be a little bit crowded together. So all you have to do is pull it apart and stretch it a little this way. The shrink wrap modifier enables us to do so very effortlessly, to move things, you know, just so when it animates, that part of the model isn't looking like too rigid and bending in an unnatural way. So this is working good so far. Just for a quick retopology for this tiger model, I like this result. This is gonna go good. Okay, so we can continue to extrude down to the knee. Yeah, we want to scale that edge loop in a little, rotate it this way, and just move it into position and make some cut edge loops right there and right here. And turn off proportional edit for things like this, where you gotta really get into there and move things precisely where you need them. But then, like for things like this where you could just push it around a little easier, you could turn proportional edit right back on. The main thing is to make sure no vertices are too crowded, and to make sure that there's no stretching going on with other vertices to even out this geometry. It's all really got to be done by hand, and you got to pan around this object a whole lot until you really see the relationship that each of these polygons has with one another when it animates. So a knee or an elbow or a wrist or something like that, this just needs 3 edge loops, and you're okay with that. Then you can move down here and make another 3. This is just simple low poly modeling, but it's optimized with some easy to use tools like the shrink wrap modifier. It's a very interesting technology I have discovered, and it's just so powerful. Look at this, we're almost done already. We just make simple extrusions and things like this. You could scale on the z-axis, get that edge loop to be maybe a little flatter if possible. Yeah, okay, kind of zoom in, turn off proportional editing, maybe turn it back on to stretch things out. Alright, so it takes a lot of tweaking. You really got to be concentrating on this the whole time. If you lose focus for just a second and you aren't like panning around the object constantly, then you might just make a mistake. So we could finish with this foot here just by extruding downwards, scaling this up a little, and get these vertices conforming to the wide edges of this foot. You don't necessarily have to model out the toes all individually for like a low poly model, but I'm going to do so here just for the sake of the demonstration. So check it out. We got these vertices, we move them so it's about like one face in the middle of each toe. I try to minimize my stretching just like this, just moving things around until it's no longer as stretched, and to get rid of this crowding here. Exactly like this. And we could take like this part of the edge loop, deselect this part, and just make an extrusion down. Maybe merge this vertice with that one, and I'll do another merge there. So that's coming together with like 3 polygons onto one vertice in a corner with 3 edges going there. That's okay for certain pieces like that one where it's just got to have that geometry collapsing around like one of those parts where it's curving at like a kind of a sharp turn there. So I'm going to cut this edge loop just to get a little more detail in this part. You can always get some edge loops where you need them to go. In complicated parts of the model, it's better to have more edge loops than to not have enough of them. So with all these faces on this part of the foot where the toes are coming out, we can make use of some tools just to speed up the process. So we could go select like one of these faces here, and Control B is the bevel tool. That just makes a face inside of a face. We'll do that for each of these actually. This will really help get the detail focused onto where we need it to be on these toes. Alright, now I'll just point pull until it kinda looks exactly how I need it to look like. If you can't really select a vertex easily, just go into wireframe and you should be able to grab a hold of it just like that. So I see there's actually 2 vertices right in here. No, that's just a triangle. So with triangles we want to delete them because they just kind of make the exporter really struggle sometimes. And I never like to have triangles in the model. I only keep quadrilaterals. That's the best practice for this. Alright, this is a little crowded here, so move those vertices apart. If you look from like the bottom perspective, you can see like where these toes are coming together, and it might be helpful to toggle X-ray on and off in situations like this. I can really see now where these vertices should be positioned a lot easier now. So this is like the crevice in between the toe there. This is the tip of that toe here. And we'll just move things around until it starts to resemble the final product. This is very advanced part of the model, so it has to be done really cautiously. You don't want this to look too kind of a little bit too messed up, so I just gotta bevel out, because this has 5 claws. I don't know why I made 5. It should have been 4, but that's okay. It's really just fine. We could take this and bevel. We bevel this in. And just point pull the face. We'll point pull it. And we bevel this one. Just taking these vertices like kind of on the front part of the toe there, so the claw is just sticking out of the face. And we could probably bevel in later just to extrude out those claw shapes, just so when it gets textured, these normal maps aren't really getting all messed up. And I want to have nice normal maps. As you see, it created another triangle right here. I need to remove. Alright. So I can actually begin to see the shape coming together now really well, very nicely. And it's a lot, as you see, it's a lot better now because each of these toes has some geometry associated with it now. So we might just be in a position where we can start getting the underside of these toes all modeled out. So I'll just begin by making some extrusions with each of these on the underside of those ones. And you can scale them inwards just so they hopefully kind of get into the middle here a little more. As you see, just like this. We'll move them right here. We could turn X-ray back on for this part, because we're just trying to move these around here. Alright. So I'm moving this one in there. That one's like underneath that one, so move it there. This one here. Move this one around there. And as you see, it created a stray vertex here somehow, so you could delete that one. We can merge. We can actually merge those, because then if these are merged together, it collapses some of this more complicated geometry, and we could create just some concave quadrilaterals to fill in the gaps. This is perfectly acceptable. I think this is gonna work well. So merge this one here and fill in the gap there. And then on the edges of these, just make a quadrilateral. Fill it in here. And fill this one there. Alright. So I can move these around now, just to simplify how this is all shaped. Yeah, so the crevice like in between the toes, you could just move that up, and so that quadrilateral doesn't look so squished together anymore. Perfect. So it's a very, very slow process, but that's just the way it is. You fill in some quadrilaterals around the whole thing to finish closing up the bottom of the foot here. And then I'm just gonna fill in the rest of these. I'm gonna go ahead and say this one. Alright. And then this one here. Fantastic. Now you see we just have one more. That's pretty much done. I'm not too worried about the claws. That was just kind of experimental. So, in situations like this, where you have like a bunch of mesh that's very complicated, it took a long time to make all that. I'm not trying to go through that arduous process again. So I'm just gonna Shift D and move all that stuff over to this part of the model there. Hopefully I can just maybe scale it up, and I might just be able to duplicate it easily. Alright, okay, so it looks like I might just have to turn the shrink wrap modifier just to disable it for right now, so I'll be able to do all that. So to disable it, we can turn this off here, just temporarily. Take that selection that we had, Shift D, and Shift D, try to get it like right there. Excellent. We can begin to use only the magnet tool right in here to just readjust everything the way it was. And if you get your viewpoint here, just click it with the 3D cursor and go Alt Home. It centers around the 3D cursor, so it's easier to view it. Just a little bit easier to view everything. And as you see, I'm just gonna try to move all of this stuff right back where it has to be, starting around like the wrist and moving around, kind of unstretching all this geometry. Just like this. Okay. It's gonna be a little bit complicated in the toes there, because yeah, actually you see, okay, I have 5 claws there, so actually that's gonna be the same as it was for the other foot. We'll just unstretch like these vertices here. Just try to relax the mesh out, and the shrink wrap modifier is still working. It's just not displaying like the edited cage, but you can still see the result that it's giving us as if it were to be applied. So we'll take these toes, we'll actually take these parts of the toes and select only those ones here, only this portion here, and maybe deselect like some of this up there and this here. What we could do is kind of adjust how that's positioned across, so you see what it's doing here. We can rotate it around and sort of just get these things a little bit better alignment. So that's working pretty well. Now we could start point pulling, get these toes right where they gotta be at. See if we can just unstretch this portion here maybe. and move these toes around. So I think I can just select the face, and with the proportional edit, maybe just refine how that's stretching across. Yeah, as you see, I gotta move it down a whole lot here because this foot's actually kind of tilted a little more downwards than the back foot was in the sculpture. So that's how it has to be. Just move this toe right there, and then this one, this toe actually gotta be moved over here. Yeah, exactly like this. Like the tops of these move down a little bit so it's not so stretched up there. So it's getting a little better. It's getting a little easier to see the shapes that it's producing for me here. Let's focus a little bit like on this perspective of the foot underneath, so I can see exactly where these things got to be adjusted at for this all to work smoothly as possible. So that vertex is sticking to the claw there. We could just move that back. Okay, now that's not a problem anymore. See, it's all about these small adjustments to get everything working pretty well. And then at this point in time, I think I'm comfortable turning this back on so I can see my vertices. Alright. And we just have to revisit where all these vertices are attaching onto the sculpture here. So that's working good there. This is like the crevice of that toe there. Move this down and then move this back so it's not as stretched. Alright, that's going good. It's slowly getting there. You see like the shapes of the toes, they're getting a little better. It's better than just recreating all this from scratch, you know. You end up with a result that's just as good within less time. You see, I'm all about saving time and things like this because I'm trying to get onto the texturing, onto the animating, getting this all set. So that's good. Yeah, you can see like right in this view where all these toes are sticking out. So maybe I just might have to shift these up slightly higher. And see where that's going. Okay. So that's aligned on that toe perfectly well. And we'll just get this one now. Alright, that vertex is sticking to the claw. Just move it to the side. That fixes the problem. And I'm just gonna move that so it's a little more straight up and down there. Okay. I'm gonna move like the crevices of the toes upwards, just so that vertex isn't creating such a concave face, and it's gonna be a nicer result in the end. In wireframe, you can select like these hidden vertices there a little easier, and we'll just nudge this slightly upwards there. That's so it's kind of like at the level of this one. And then this one here is a little bit squished. As you see, it should probably be moved a little bit to the left. Yes, we can verify where that should be positioned. So I actually gotta skip way over here and move those like that. Just so I can really have all this positioned exactly where it's got to be at. It's just gonna take a little bit of time to just adjust, get everything right where it should be. I can verify the positioning and how this should be shaped just by panning so I can see on the underside of it exactly what I gotta do to make my next move. It's sticking on the tip of that claw, so let's just move that to the side a little more. Excellent. Now that's good, and I'm going to need to move these vertices up a little more there. Just zoom in and out and just to check the final result, so you can see exactly how this is coming together right there. Yeah, I gotta have this shifted upwards and then this one sort of up on top. That way these are not too low and they kind of look like this. Alright, that's a good enough result. Now I could just concentrate a little more like on the underside of this foot and get this geometry relaxed. Just get these edges flowing a little better, like this. So as you see, even in complicated parts like that, if you see at first it's not really working for you, don't get discouraged. You can keep it going. You just have to concentrate a little bit, and eventually you'll end up with something that works. That's just a part of the process here. So great, so now I don't have to worry as much anymore about that part of the model, because it's done. We got the feet all finished up. You see, that's gonna work okay. Just fix this vertex that's on there, turn proportional edit on, and that'll help so we can really just start to unstretch and relax these vertices so the edges are like wrapping around nice and smooth around all the contour. In areas like this, that's very stretched out, so we have to split apart this crowded part that's adjacent to it so the resolution is a little evenly distributed there. This is the ideal end product, when we can just unstretch, just relax all these out. Using our proportional edit and our shrink wrap modifier together, we can definitely get this mesh and just drag it around where it has to go. Alright, that's suitable for right now for the front paw there. We just have like vertices like this where I see the lines of the edge is a little crooked. Just getting it all smoothed out will really help to minimize stretching on the texturing later on when we UV unwrap all this. So we can join this together now with that edge loop up there very easily, just by extruding up and merging all these points together as we see fit, or you could just fill faces in between them. all the way around here. Right there and here. We fill a face. Keep going around the whole thing until it closes up. Now in areas like this, we'll just have to probably cut an edge loop right. No, we can delete this edge, like this one and this one here, and then we fill in this quadrilateral right there, and then fill this one in. And see if you could just drag these vertices around so we won't have to cut an edge loop running down the entire length of the limb, because that's just a little bit easier to do it that way, rather than having to worry about readjusting all that geometry down there, which we just finished. We could just do something simple like this. You see, these vertices are crowded, so we move that geometry around until it makes a little more sense. These vertices are a little crowded, so we drag the resolution this way. That's just what happens sometimes with the shrink wrap modifier. It crowds these vertices together for some reason. So just undo that stretching that's happening using your proportional edit, and you can achieve a result just like this. That's working really well, actually. Now I have my 3 edge loops for the wrist because we duplicated that already, but I gotta make some for the knee, and just one more for this shoulder here. Yeah, just so I have enough resolution going on right there. I could sort of manipulate it, drag it where I need to, just to get like the contour of this shoulder. I think I might actually have 4 edge loops there, just so that it bends in a more realistic fashion. Actually, yeah, I might do the same for this hip, just so I have 4 edge loops to work with rather than 3. But for knees and wrists and elbows and stuff, you could have 3. You could have 4 if it's like a really long kind of joint, like long in the sense that it would need 4 to bend really smooth. But we'll get into the rigging and weight pinning in the next video. That's a whole other topic. This is all about just creating this mesh. So let's go back on the tip of this tail here. That's a little bit more complicated than it needs to be, but we could slightly move things around, turn proportional edit off. I just want to avoid like any vertices crowding together right there. On things like this, put your 3D cursor there, Alt Home, and you could really zoom right in and adjust your details as you see fit. So we move all that exactly where it has to be. Yeah, I'm gonna move so those faces are like that, just so it doesn't look like sunken in right at the tip. So that's working a lot better now than it was. I think I can appreciate how that looks right there. So the rest of this is pretty simple. It's just the head, and we don't have to make a mouth for these models, because you know, you can if you want to, but I'm not interested in animating the mouth part. So we'll just get this chest and head filled out, and then we're pretty much done. So I've got to make a quadrilateral right there, just to sort of collapse this geometry without having to create more in a spot than necessary. I'm going to extrude these to the middle, merge them in the center. Yeah, actually, in this face, we could probably figure out a way to like get this quadrilateral drawn in here. Fill that there. And then these vertices, we just merge them. In areas like that where you have to collapse the geometry, that's about how you would go do that. So like that's about the best result you can produce. When we go to weight paint that area of the model, it's just going to bend with half weights. It's not going to be like a full influence on the spine bone with the shoulder, like with the upper arm bones. It's going to be a pretty good result there. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude these up. Actually, I don't have to, because you know what? We could just toggle X-ray off, get the grease pencil, and use that same trick just to get that drawn in there with a B surface. And I'll just increase this until it looks like I have enough edges to merge some vertices together. That's about right. So I'll just make sure these merge in the center here, and there, and there, very quickly and easily without having to extrude a bunch of times. We produce the same result there. Now we just merge these on the edge and sew it up just like this. So I can toggle my X-ray back on, and it looks like I am definitely going to need more detail in a spot like that. So what you could actually do is just to sacrifice this face. It's not going to matter that much because it's kind of higher up from that edge loop there. And we'll cut this edge loop here. And then what we could do is make a quadrilateral. So then there's a little more detail to work with in there. And I'm gonna cut one edge loop there, so then I can make another quadrilateral in here. It's all a matter of where you want these details to be positioned, and just stick them right in where you think is appropriate. Make sure your edge flow is working. Just make sure that's all set. Yeah, it's pretty much about conceptualizing where all this is gonna end up coming together in the end finished product. So that's how I would deal with some geometry in a place like that. Now that gives me a little more edge loops to work with up here. You see, we can just begin to move things around now. So to get a neck animated pretty good, you're just gonna need about maybe like 4 or 5 edge loops on the neck and head bones. 2 of those edge loops can have like half weights shared between the 2 bones, and then the others can just be the full influence. The neck bone is interesting. Sometimes you need it to be a little short and stubby, and it's just got to be situated like right in the back of there, but we'll get all into that later on when we weight paint this whole thing. I'll show you all the things you need to know about weight painting and rigging. It's a very complicated process. You really got to know what you're doing. Fantastic. So this part all in here, it's pretty low poly for a head. So what I can start to do is just begin making more edge loops where I need them to go. So I could delete like one of these vertices for now and start to extend an edge loop going around the chin and the mouth area. So for things like this, since my X mirror is turned on, I have to do something like that, create a face, and then I can just flip that normal real quick. Fantastic. Now I have something to start extruding around here, with just barely enough geometry to get by, and just to make it look really as good as possible with what I got to work with there. Very slow process. That's just the way it's done though. And then I got to fill in a face like right here. Cut this edge out, giving me a little more to work with in this part. Cut it one more time maybe. Yeah, that's gonna work. Yep, in this area here, I'm gonna go ahead and probably just see if I can get a little bit more edge loops coming out, you know. So, in this type of an area there, now I have more edge loops that I can start extruding with to meet up with those ones. Alright, so looks like that didn't necessarily work the way I was planning. So just delete these stray vertices and figure something else out here. Yeah, I could take these corners actually, just like this. Extrude these upwards and do like some kind of a merge here. So I can really situate all of this geometry where it has to be at. Just consolidate all these vertices together, so then I can get this edge loop that's coming around the nose to join up. At times, it seems like you might overthink a couple things, but it's definitely worth trying new ideas just so you could really get the end product looking exactly as you want it to. Just like this. See, now the contour of this geometry is wrapping around the sculpture exactly as it should to produce the best result that we could get. So I just merge all that and it closes that up. Looks like I can get some edges like right in this part there, and probably move these more closer to the eye here. What I want to do with this part is probably see if I could cut this edge loop there. That gives me more resolution that's close to the eye, and also a little more to bulk out this part where it's not as detailed. Then I gotta cut this here so I can merge some quadrilaterals just like this. As you see, we extend this complicated bit of geometry there. Cut an edge loop here maybe. Cut another one here if you want to. You could get this as detailed as necessary just to match the contours of that sculpture. Exact, very precise right here. Like, that's what I'm trying to achieve. Alright. Try not to lose your focus, your concentration. Now it should be on how are you going to make the eyes. Well, I like to make just a nice edge loop around just like this, and begin it there and right here. Begin drawing it out. Maybe merge a couple things. So this is like right in the corner of that here. And I'm just gonna bring these vertices extruding up. Maybe a little bit more here so I can extend this out. And then, since I want this to have a blinking animation, I'll just make it a nice clean edge loop around the eye so that I'll be able to achieve that flex. We'll make some shape keys later on when we're almost finished with this whole thing, and we'll just make a quick blink animation. Incredible. Alright. I gotta find a way to merge all these neck edge loops with all this. I'll start by filling in the faces that I know I can get. I'll merge these vertices together. Alt M, merge my vertices right here and there. And I'll just go one more time here. Alt M. Now in spots like this where you have the ear and it has to match up really clean with that edge loop that's around the eye, you just gotta be a little creative. And you could even do like the bevel type of a thing that I showed you earlier with that, just to get a little more focal geometry where you got to put it to get it to go in there. Yeah, I'm just cutting an edge loop in here, stretching out the crowded vertices so I have a little bit of a better neck head junction here. A little bit more resolution where it has to be at. A little bit just like this here. Just unstretching, relaxing all these edges together here. Yeah, this is functioning together real well. I can see already how this is gonna go together. In the final finished product, it's gonna be a pretty good result, trust me. So, a little bit less stretching here and right there. A little bit. Get these edges smoothing together real well. I can see I'm probably gonna need to fix areas just like this. The same technique I showed you earlier. Delete a face, cut an edge loop, and boom, instant detail right where it has to go. Right where it needs to be at. Then you just fill in the hole, cutting an edge loop wherever you think you can get one. I get one right here, you know? Make some quadrilaterals and close it up. It takes a while to get that technique down perfectly. And if you end up with like some concave looking quadrilaterals, it's okay. It's gonna animate just fine. And you don't really have to be concerned about how that looks. As long as the edges are coming together pretty smooth, I wouldn't really worry about anything like this too much. It's just a basic retopology right there. So you could try a couple things. Get a pole Now what a pole is, that's a bunch of edges coming together, like 5 edges to make a vertice. So like 5 polygons come together in like a star shape, like right here. That's what a pole is. Sometimes you just have to make them to get the geometry coming around with a nice contour to preserve the shapes of your edge loops and how they're flowing together to get this so it animates real well, deforming the mesh exactly like we need it to do. As you see, I got like 4 edge loops to work with on this neck part. So I can make a pole in a couple places here, just so that this is a little simplified here. A little bit. In places like this, it's just going to come together with an edge loop wrapping around in there, and that's perfectly okay. It's all just a matter of how you want it to look in the end, I suppose. So I'm going to go ahead and merge that here. Move this to the skull and move this kind of, yeah, probably like on the base of that edge of the ear right here. And then in this face we are able to make a bevel, so we get a little more detail right where it needs to go. You could actually turn magnetize off to do the bevel a little better, I think. No, that doesn't actually doesn't make anything easier, since the shrink wrap modifier is working here. We just gotta do a slight bevel then, just like this. Move these to the tip of the ear now. You could sort of see, like, on this mirrored part of the mesh, with that mirror modifier, we could sort of see how this is interacting there. And we just make this ear just a simple ear. It doesn't have to be anything in particularly detailed, because when the normal map applies later on, it's gonna really add all those details exactly how we need it to look. We just have to get the main thing with this ear and cut an edge loop around it, and that'll help get a little bit more detail where it has to go. Alright, that's working. It's a little stretched, a little bit stretched in here, but that's fine. What we gotta do is just finish filling this out now. And if possible, I actually need a little bit more detail in this part. Sometimes, like the back of the model, it needs a little more detail. So you could begin actually like somewhere at the base of this tail, delete any random vertice. And yeah, I'm just gonna cut an edge loop, make some quadrilaterals here, and sort of see where we could begin to close that together, just to preserve the edge flow we have in here. so it comes together at a pole there. A pole is just a vertice with more than 4 adjacent corners of the quadrilaterals coming together to make that junction. And that's fine. But just to make sure that the base of that tail still has its mesh deforming smooth, I'm cutting an edge loop there in compensation. That'll work for right now. The edge flow just has to be like this. Maybe even merge those. Nah. It's just gotta be exactly like that. That works for right now. Now we have more geometry like in each shoulder blades. So, with the proportional edit, we move those apart. Might just have to cut another edge loop in the ear there. That way we could really move like this stuff closer to the tip. There. I think I can see that if I cut this face like on the tip of the ear, then I could get another edge loop cut right in here where I need that detail to be at, and that's gonna just mean that I'll have to make some kind of a compromise there. Maybe make a small quadrilateral in here. And then, to remove this triangle, that's always seems to be a little bit of an issue, but we'll just cut another edge loop. Better to have too many edge loops than not having enough, just so that I can make sure my topology is smooth and it is distributed evenly throughout this whole thing on this ear. That's a little better than it was, right? Unlike things like this edge of the ear, you can have vertices a little crowded together just to compensate for that, so that edge is a little more well defined. Get this up to the tip of the ear as high as I can get it to stretch, and then this sort of complex part, we can stretch that out this way. That'll help sort of finalize the shape of this ear. Okay. Again, when the normal maps get applied to all of this, it's going to really make it look a lot better than it does right now. So that's fine right here. We're actually going to cut an edge loop there, so there's not as much stretching going on in there. Now, with all these vertices, we don't need it to be this detailed up in here. So with the proportional edit, we could stretch it out a little bit just to speed things up, because this is almost done, and it's almost to the point where we could close everything up, and we'll begin adding seams, getting the texture going. This is gonna fill here. We could fill that here, and then this one we just merge some stuff together. Until it comes together and it'll close right there. So the ears have now taken their shape, and that's great. That's exactly what I was hoping for this to look like. Yep, we got this and that. Kind of unstretch all this back here. I'm pretty satisfied with that, honestly. So I'm gonna sort of rotate around all these vertices around the eyeball, and we have a lot here, but there's not as much over there, so I'll cut an edge loop just so it's evenly distributed. Maybe this will be the corner of the eye. Yeah, and we could cut another edge loop here, why not? So that's the eye coming together. And it's gonna need these to be filled in with quadrilaterals, just because we're gonna apply an eye texture in game later on. And what that does is it takes the center point of the eyeball and it creates a sphere actually around it. Actually, that's what it does. And then with that sphere, it calculates the specular maps and the positioning of the pupil. And that's just how it does it. So it's a very simple thing to texture out. You don't need to mess around creating a sphere in the middle of it or anything like that. This is just how I'm gonna do it. So in a spot like this, I'm just gonna delete this face. Now I want to see if I could sort of unstretch these here so they're wrapping around, getting that blink animation to be as nice as possible. In a spot like this, I gotta redo that because the vertices are stretched out like a little too much. Okay, then we merge here. And I'm gonna go ahead and make a quadrilateral there. Yeah, that might look a little bit awkward when that gets deforming, so I'm actually cutting another edge loop right there. So then I can I can make a quadrilateral here and there. Better to have a whole bunch of edge loops than to not have enough in any particular portion of this model. This is the best way to do it. Yeah, and faces like this coming together with 3 corners at one vertex has to be sort of evenly positioned. Exactly. So that it works. And coming back to here, I'm just gonna merge that and see if I could figure out something back here with this thing to cut an edge loop there, because I could use that edge loop. Honestly, that's a good spot to put one. And then cut an edge loop right in here and make the quad there. Or in a spot like this, I could actually merge that so there doesn't have to be a quadrilateral there, but it's up to you. Just use your discretion and move things around as you see is necessary. Yep, that's pretty much the final model, guys. So it's got 1,474 polygons, and now we have pretty much finished creating this. It's ready to animate, ready to texture together here, and you could just do finishing touches if you think it's necessary, like just small little things like merging those and getting everything all set, so like removing unnecessary vertices here, filling faces and stuff like that. It really just takes a lot of planning ahead, and you have to know what you're doing pretty much. You have to really concentrate on all these things, and if you're able to do so, you'll end up with something pretty similar to this. So like that's about all I got to teach you for Retopology. And with that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this. It's been Moist Andy, and have a nice time and go out there and try and create something. Be creative, you know, that's what it's all about. So have a nice time and bye bye.